Hello there, my name is James Baldwin and welcome to another episode of Lakeside Drive's F1 podcast. In this episode, we go back in time not only to earlier this year when we recorded this episode and we're still called the AUSF1 Show, but back to 1989 for the Suzuka Japanese Grand Prix. Oh, one hell of a race and one hell of a chat. So sit back, relax and enjoy this classics race review. G'day, welcome to another episode of AUSF1, and this time for an AUSF1 Classics race review. I'm joined by my friends and yours at Two Thomas's, Tommy T. G'day, mate.
G'day.
Love the pointing in Campy. Anything for you? Great. That's really disappointing. What's not disappointing is you guys are more like the cockroaches at this point, to be honest. We haven't quite got there yet. The good, exciting part about this episode is that we are reviewing Suzuka 1989.
What a race.
What
was
a
not
bloody
born.
race. You weren't even around. I think I was just around and Campy was 40. It hasn't changed.
I was just around too.
But look, if you haven't watched this race, it is a phenomenally entertaining, about an hour and 20 minutes. So it's actually not a huge commitment of your time and they're all over the place. But what we're going to do is do a normal AUSF1 race review, but we're going to look back obviously on this. But Tommy T is going to drive the ship because he loves this sort of stuff. So Tommy T, you are now the star in this episode.
Forgive me. Having a crack.
Apologising first. Good.
No, so first thing I was going to do, I was like, let's set the scene. Because firstly, I wasn't here, so I didn't even know what was going on at this time. So I needed to put myself back in the time. So just a couple of things that had happened that year. We've got George W. Bush Sr. sworn in.
Jeez, he was a dud.
I thought you were going to say, geez, we're not going to
Not
get
where
them
I thought
like
that was going. Yeah. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective came out. Madonna, Like a Prayer.
Okay.
Michael Jordan, The Shot.
Oh, yep.
And we've got Tiananmen Square happening. So that's just kind of let's just throw it all back in there.
Yeah.
That's how long ago this actually was.
Mate.
A whole 31 years ago.
It's a long time ago, eh?
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Love it.
Lewis Hamilton not winning. Love that. I'm signing up for that.
That happened?
I don't know. Not in
I don't
recent
remember.
history.
Lewis was a right 3 years old back then. Just a hot tip, boys.
Young Lewis.
Hot tip. There it is.
Probably watching with his dad back then, to be honest, as
Yeah,
well.
good point.
Yeah.
Love that.
He's very keen.
So how did it all work? How did quali work?
So these are the things. So we go back further in history and we just have rules that we assume were always the rules. Not the case. So qualifying back then was Friday, Saturday practice. Your best time was where you started on the grid. Simple.
Love it.
Love that.
But probably not exciting.
They had a Sunday warm-up too, didn't they, in the morning?
But didn't count towards your position.
Yeah.
But we can imagine, just say it's rain forecast on a Saturday. Friday, you go and set your time. There's no point going out Saturday. It's not going to be better than yesterday. Just sit in here.
Wow.
There's no reason to do it. It's easy. Why would you? So it wasn't as exciting as what we've got now, which is qualifying session. So I think we've improved there, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe not all these practice sessions, but certainly for that.
Next thing was the points were completely different. So we've had many different point systems, but for this current era, we had 9 points for a win, then tearing down to 6, 4, 3, 2, 1 in sixth. And only your best 11 results counted towards your driver's championship. Woo. All of your points counted towards constructors, but only the best 11 results counted towards your driver's championship. So which is why it makes sense when we're talking about the start of this race that Senna had it all to play for and needed 2 results to win the championship.
Yeah, so in some background for this season, Senna had won 6 races and he'd also had 2 mechanical failures while in the lead by miles in 2 of the previous races. One of them was at Monza and the other one was Silverstone, I believe. He also, in another race in the lead, got taken out by Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari.
By that mustache.
Yeah, it was a great mustache. The tash.
Mustache.
The tash.
We'll get to the tash.
But he actually got taken out when he'd been black flagged, so he shouldn't have even been in the race. Should have been pulling into the pits and stopping, and he took him out. So Senna was pretty frustrated, won the World Championship the year before.
Yeah.
And he should have really doubled up, really. But we'll get to the.
We'll talk about that.
We'll get to that. So he'd won 6, should have won another 3, really.
Mate.
And in this race, there's 2 races to go. He had to win both to win the world championship.
To take it from Alan Prost, his teammate.
Yes, and Alan Prost, he had to drop one of his point scoring results because he'd had such a consistent season.
Yeah, so his best 11, he'd had too many points, so one of those had to drop away. Wow. The other thing to talk about was the engines back then. So we've done a podcast recently about the current regulation changes. So from the previous year, we had turbochargers in 88.
Yeah.
This year, no turbochargers, but back then, geez, it was simple. 3.5 litres and then between 8 and 12 cylinders, do what you want. So we had V8s, V12s and V10s all running around the same field. So 2 most dominant engines, we had the McLaren-powered Honda.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had the
Ferrari.
Williams and the Renault and the Ferrari V12. So the other 2 are V10s. Then we had a collection of V8s, the Judd and the Cosworth, kind of most of the field. We had a Lamborghini V12 in the Lola car.
That blew up.
Yep. A lot.
Would have sounded great. Wow. And a Yamaha V8 in the Zac Speed. So just very, very interesting times that you can have so many different engines, so many different sounds. Like we all know how different all these engines can sound. We're now running hybrids with massive turbochargers and they all sound somewhat the same. They're slightly different, but this would have been incredible.
Yep.
What amazes me is that the regulations were so different back then.
Yeah.
These days we have such concise. I mean, we're talking millimetres and flex angles on front wings.
Yeah.
Back then it was like, as long as it's 3.5 litres, we don't care.
Yeah.
Do what you want.
Do whatever you want. You
Yeah.
know? Which is
What a time.
Which is great.
And we also had like 26 starters about this specific race. But I mean, in terms of how many different engines there are, times that by having 26 cars on the grid.
Totally.
Unbelievable pandemonium ensues. So when there's 14 finishes, actually that's not really a good race because there've been so many people who have dropped off.
14's good. Be happy with 14 finishes.
It's funny too because in 88 they had 20 teams start. One team failed to make the first race.
Insane.
They had 38 cars on the grid.
That's insane. The starting grid would go around the back of the last turn.
Yeah.
Mate, Mazepin would have got to drive easy back then.
That's insane. Man, what a different time.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, this is the time we're going to introduce a new segment that's going to be consistent throughout this year. And James is very excited for this. He's been practicing. And what we're going to try to endeavour is James, the fastest speaking one here, is going to try and give us a race review in the fastest lap time of that current track. So we're looking at Lewis Hamilton's 1 minute 30 seconds and then 0.83. And you have to try and give us a full race summary in that time.
This is not ideal.
Campy and I will be timing.
Whilst
Campy.
there wasn't a lot of not a long race, so much happened in this race, trying to fit it into 1:30. And when Tommy suggested, you just do it in the fastest lap time, for Senna it was like 1:38. I thought I had an extra 8 seconds. Turns out I don't, and another reason why Lewis Hamilton's on the list. Anyway.
Now, while he's doing this, me and Tommy are going to be poking fun at him from the side
Do we have to set some
try and
ground
make him laugh, reminiscent of high school when you had to read out loud.
I feel
in
like we're not allowed
class.
to talk.
Not that we went to the same high school, but yeah, okay.
So I don't think we're allowed to talk and make noise because that would be bad for the audio listeners. But I think we can kind of just give him looks and we can try and put him off in that respect. But he's a consummate professional. He is the most broadcast ready out of all of us. Campy and I are absolute chumps. We have no idea.
Chumps.
This is polished. Flight attendant worthy. He is spick and span. He's ready to roll.
He actually did the Ryanair takeoff and landing procedural recording that they play on every Ryanair flight.
Alrighty.
Head flight
James, are you
attendant,
ready?
male.
Not really, because you really got into my head with that.
Yeah, I
You
did.
triggered me slightly.
That's some pre-game.
All right. Well, here in 1 minute and 30 seconds, 0.983 is my attempt at reviewing this entire race.
I'm here for this.
Would you like to give me a 3, 2, 1 go, Tommy?
I think Campy can do 3, 2, 1.
All right.
3, 2, 1, go.
In order to improve his straight line speed, Prost had his gurney flap removed before the race without Senna's knowledge. At the start, Prost got away much faster than Senna as he was hoping, instantly wiping out the Brazilian pole's position advantage. In fact, Senna's start was so poor that Gerhard Berger managed to get alongside him from his third pace on the grid. But Senna's McLaren had the inside line of the first corner and he managed to keep the Ferrari behind him. With the race set up now clearly superior to his teammates over the first half of the race, Prost steadily built up his lead to almost 6 seconds, and then Senna lost an additional 2 seconds due to a slow pit stop. By removing the gurney flap, Prost had gone for a car setup with less downforce than Senna, giving him more straight line speed and protection against all but the most extreme overtaking attempts into the circuit's one clear overtaking spot, the chicane at the lap's end. However, with a new set of tyres on, the balance of the power shifted. The reigning world champion began to reel in the Frenchman's lead. Senna finally caught Prost on lap 40. Prost had deliberately eased his pace, allowing Senna to follow him closely in this slipstream for the corners, at the expense of forcing Senna to use up his fresher tyres. Prost had greater top speed on the straights. Senna's like 4 settings gave him the advantage through the corners. On lap 47, Senna uses greater cornering speed to make sure that he remained close behind Prost's car through to the challenging double apex sprint quarter. This put Senna's car directly in an aerodynamic tow for the leading McLaren, negating much of Prost's straight line advantage. Through the infamous 130R ultra high speed left curve, Senna's cut Prost's lead still further, pushing his car only 2 lengths behind his arrival. The next corner after 130R in the chicane, the second slowest corner on the lap, as Prost began to brake for the corner, Senna dived along the inside and Prost tried to move and close the door, crashed into him, and then in the end he got all these really wonderful bloody disqualifications. I can't believe I can't.
It was that middle yellow stuffed you, man.
I'm so sorry for all of that and my inability to speak quickly.
Best thing about podcasts is you can listen at half speed. You can probably understand what he said.
You can. Probably still sounds rubbish too.
Jim, that was very impressive, mate.
Full credit, mate. I would not have got halfway through that.
Very good.
Why don't you talk about the grid, Tommy, while I recover my whole life?
So I'm going to do what Murray Walker did. I'm just going to gloss over who I care about, to be honest.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
what we do
only talk about the English drivers,
British
apart from
drivers.
the first two.
We've got Ayrton Senna, Alan Prost at the start. We've got Gerhard Berger, Nigel Mansell, Patrese, and who do I care about now?
Martin Brundle.
Oh, you got to remember.
Yeah, I'm getting to Brundle. He's in 13th. No, he's on the roads. He's in 13th.
But we have people like Nelson Piquet in 11th, Jean Lacey. Like these are, if you're around the world of Formula One, you have known these names. Like this was a pretty stacked, not if you've been watching racing, but this is a pretty good stacked deck for this race. So obviously the McLaren had the advantage here, and you've got Nigel Mansell with the moustache in the Ferrari alongside Gerhard Berger. So there's a lot of competition up towards the front.
Yeah. Big time. Let's kind of slow down and go back to what James was talking about. And we'll go through the race a little bit because you guys have watched it now and this is why you're at this point you're watching this.
Yeah.
So Prost got away really well to start with.
Did he jump the start?
No, well, he didn't. So this is why I included keeping in removing his gurney flap. So he didn't. This is a big bit of error. We're talking in the previous episode about the difference that 2 seconds can make. Well, this is something that's stopping airflow, and Prost had removed it from his McLaren without Senna, who was his teammate, even knowing. So. There was a lot of conjecture about, well, clearly he jumped the start because it looked like
he got away.
It did a VB. It's like, well, surely that's not within regulations. But it's just because his car was so quick and there was a limited amount of downforce in comparison to Senna that happened.
But to be honest, it looked like he was pulling away as well. Like he was gaining an advantage for the first kind of third of that race.
Yeah. It was reminiscent of Lewis Hamilton now. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
It's just like, see ya.
Give me 10 laps and I'm building a lead and I'm maintaining that bad boy.
So we're going to talk about the best moment of the race, or do you want me to go through more of the race before we get to that point?
I think we can leave that, hey? Yeah, let's kind of go through best moments.
Yeah. Why don't you start us off?
Okay.
Because this is the best.
Senna flipping people off, do a blue flag and just get out of the way.
Doing these ones.
He just, get out of my way, pal. Like, he's a character, and that's why the fans loved him. That's why we love Senna.
Yeah.
He was the Kimmy before Kimmy. He just did not give a crap. All he wanted to do was race.
Well, we even said yesterday when we were talking about this that a lot of the anger that comes through in this race, and we'll get to what happened a little bit later on, is very reminiscent of Max Verstappen now. There's a lot of passion in this guy in terms of his racing, and he pushes and pushes and pushes and doesn't care about teammates or team orders or any of that. He just gets on with it.
Yeah.
So that's good. My favourite moment of the race was Nigel Mansell with his moustache, after his car inevitably broke down. after the comment of my favourite comment of the race by Paul. The question is if Mansell has enough oil to finish the race, as these cars don't go so well without it. It's like, you reckon, mate. Anyway, so unlike today, all of these cars, as I said, there was like 14 finishes or whatever, and 26 started the race. All these cars, if they had broken down or whatever, just literally parked up on the side of the track. And there's one moment where the Japanese driver in his Camel branded car just pulled up behind someone else and got out. The cars were just left there. So that's the point of safety. But Nigel gets out of his car, which is a little bit on fire, and then sits on the wall and watches Prost and Senna. It's like, he had his safety moustache on though, so that's the reason why he was able to do that without anything. What was your favourite moment of the race, Campy?
Oh, look, favourite moment of the race, there was a very good part where Murray Walker was talking about all these. What we were seeing on TV wasn't what he wanted to see. You're actually listening to. He goes, I apologise. You're listening to two very frustrated commentators right now because what we're seeing on screen is not what I want to actually be watching. So Nigel Mansell was coming up to the eventual winner, Anini, I think.
Nannini, yep.
And there was a bit of a battle ensuing, and Murray Walker could see the time, and he could obviously see them going past at some stage. Like, geez, this is what I want to watch. And he was carrying on for about 4 minutes before they finally said, "Oh, they've listened to me." Oh, it was brilliant to watch.
It was following Gerhard Berger, and so he's like, so if we stay on this shot, we can see it in the next image. Never mind, we moved off of it. Classic. You know what? TV directors haven't gotten any better.
No.
Classic.
But the safety back then was just
what safety?
Reminiscent of the times, right?
Was there
we'll be right.
Was there a speed lane? A speed limit in the pit lane?
No speed limit.
No, I
in
think
the pit
they
lane.
did. They mentioned that because
it just
on Senna's entry to the pit lane, it was mentioned. It was like, you better not speed through here like someone else. Blah 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 blah.
Okay.
And it was like,
it's definitely not 60.
It was more than
an hour,
60. I can tell you that.
Man.
And the other, like blue flags, you mentioned it. Blue flags didn't exist back then.
That was a suggestion.
It was
they
just
did
get
not
out
care.
of the way.
Yeah.
So if you had been a prick the week before, and you know, like Senna surely had been to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, he's going to lap them the next week. They're like, no, I'm just going to make it really difficult for you. I like that because it means you've got to be a gentleman in every aspect so that you have the respect not of your team and the fans, but your fellow drivers as well.
Yeah.
Are you planning to bring that to this show at all?
Not at all.
Being a gentleman, just thought I'd ask.
Not at all.
Yeah, he's a gentleman.
I'm an acquired taste, put it that way.
Shout out to Bridie. Yep.
Love that. Yeah. All right, and next section is the best sponsor award of the time.
Camel cigarettes, one of the greats.
Mate, the branding back then was amazing. Right now, all
so
we get is 3 major sponsors plastered everywhere, digitally, physically. It was really good to see such an array of sponsorship on cars, off cars, everything. It was awesome. And like good brands, good design, not this crap that we're getting now of rich energy and rubbish.
Well, Marlboro was on Ferrari and McLaren.
Yeah.
How's that?
That's how big it was.
I love that. It's just the best.
Well, you suggested that my favourite should be some kind of airline, so
which usually would be a sponsor of some kind.
Well, like now Emirates is the big one, but I tried to find Pan Am on anything and I couldn't from my Ryanair time, which didn't actually exist. But my favourite one to look at is the 7-Up on the back of the Benetton.
Yeah.
That logo.
That's good.
It just looks cool because the Benetton's all like multicoloured and stuff, and I think it just suits it.
Where do you even buy 7-Up these days? That's the real question.
That's the real question in this podcast. Welcome to where you can buy 7-Up.
Local takeaway shops, mate. Usually along with Dr. Pepper and some other random stuff.
The one thing I really enjoyed about this whole period is Murray Walker. Because the guy is an absolute superstar.
Icon.
We have had many conversations around the current commentators and what commentary we get in Australia. Shout out if you can actually get Channel 4 because I'm pretty sure you're going to have a much better time with Alex Jacques as the lead commentator for the 2021 season. But Murray.
So we're going to call this the Surely Murray Award.
Surely.
Because I reckon about every sentence started with surely. What an absolute legend.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
And you can tell that back then he didn't have much to watch. He was basically looking at what we could see.
Yes.
Commenting, keeping us up to date of what was going on.
Who was the co-host?
Well, it's Paul at this point, and I don't really know a lot about
Because
him.
he sounded like he had a stick firmly entrenched right up his backside.
He did. He was like really hard on a lot of drivers, and I was like, Karun, is that you? Just trying to find some relevance here. Is there anywhere under
But
the
no,
table?
so I've got a couple of nominations. Obviously,
Yes.
we've got Surely.
Surely.
We've got At This Stage.
Yes.
A mechanic's fumble. Oh, and a little gesture. What's your mirror, chum? And
But
Ron,
this is the best part, I think, of the entire race outside of this, is this quote.
Ron Dennis wielding the lollipop.
Ron Dennis.
Absolute legend.
So we'll talk about the incident, but when Senna comes into the pits to do a change, Dennis basically grabs the lollipop from the race side and the track side and just runs across the pit lane to hold it up. And then it actually looks like everyone was done and he paused just for dramatic effect because he knew that Senna was going to catch the next go anyway and then let him go. And I was just like...
I reckon we need more.
I loved. Sorry, you go.
No, I reckon we just need more bosses bloody on the lollipop.
Yeah, we need Karen Horner holding a lollipop to do the whole thing.
Big fan.
If you don't mind.
I love the moment where Murray was talking about a French driver called Philippe Elliott, and he'd had a little excursion off the track.
An excursion.
And his very
excellent.
lines were, an excursion is a good word for him and his history. You get the feeling he was the Pastor Maldonado of that generation. So I did some research, went back. That guy crashed out on like 80% of the races that he entered.
That's excellent.
Or
That's
he had
good from you.
incidents in 80% of the race. That's very
great.
good. So,
Murray, what an absolute legend. An absolute legend.
I love that. Okay, so this next award, we've got the Take Me Back Award. These are the things that we wish current Formula One had, things that have aged really well, things that we're nostalgic about. Campy, have you got anything that comes to mind?
I love the open cockpit. Love it. Get rid of this halo. It's done.
Never
For
mind
how
safety.
Romain Grosjean survived through
none of
that.
that.
And,
But
yep. Okay, good to know. Yep.
That's you asked
So
me what
safety.
I liked about
No,
those cars.
lack of
I
safety.
like
Go
the
on.
sound and the lack of safety.
Sound
the
for
sound
sure.
and the lack of safety.
It's like the OH&S rep when I go to a job site. It's like, come on, dude, I can't use a 3-foot ladder, but I can jump on a 10-foot ladder because it's got a platform. Give me a break.
James.
Sorry, I'm digressing.
James.
They make themselves feel important, these OH&S
I
officers.
love the sound
Get a
of
real
Formula
job, you
One
dickhead.
cars so much. It's my favourite thing. Look, you're not wrong though. No, the sound is phenomenal. And as you said it earlier on, the different engine notes for sure
Yeah.
was great. And I actually love just how aggressively they entered the pit lane and left the pit lane.
Big time.
And Ron Dennis with a lollipop. Maybe just bring him
Dennis
back
with a lollipop.
specifically for McLaren.
I think the most impressive thing is pre-GoPro, how good the footage was on car.
Yeah.
To think back, 89, and you've got
Dude.
live stream coming. I think it was only selected cars per
Yes.
each week
Yeah.
from memory, but bloody hell, it's still impressive to be getting a live feed from a car moving that fast.
And often that was the best shot of the entire time because every camera operator just couldn't focus on the car.
Yeah.
So we need to bring up the helicopter.
Well, this
operator.
is
That's
this
in
is
what's
the-
aged poorly. We'll get there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm on the fence about this one. Changing gear. Is
Yes.
that a good thing or a bad thing?
Love it.
A couple of in-cockpit shots, you see Senna going to pull a gear like he has to lift his hand off the steering wheel.
love
That's
it.
just something we're
Love
not
it.
used to seeing.
Love it.
As the lack of safety reasons to why Campy.
It's
you
pretty
know,
incredible.
that.
You
You
had
know
to
what else?
drive those cars, didn't you, Campy?
Yeah.
You had to drive it. And that was like pure, that was pure man and machine. Today, computers everywhere control everything, sensors and everything. Back then, not a computer or a microchip or a sensor on the thing. It was, right, we are racing this thing as hard as we possibly can. We're going to run it hot. If it runs out of an oil-blowing engine, who
fire.
gives a shit? Let's just go for it. We saw Mansell running around for 5 or 6 laps. Massive oil leak
Pouring
somewhere.
oil out of the back.
Eventually, the oil was going to run out, as Martin Brundle, what's his name, alluded to. Sorry, Martin Walker.
Martin Brundle was actually in the car racing, probably behind him.
He actually crashed with someone too, but yeah, we love that stuff. Just
Oh, mate.
imagine
No
that.
black flags in
Imagine
sight.
that for 2022. No computer electronics at all in the car.
Just all analog.
oh, love it.
That would
incredible.
be, yeah, epic.
Incredible.
To
All
say
right,
the
Campy,
least.
you alluded to it. What has aged poorly?
Oh, the helicopter shot.
Just because you've got it doesn't mean you should use it. That is like the worst bit of television I've ever seen. Like ever. If you've watched the race, you'll know. Specifically going into the incident we're going to talk to about the Prost and Senna, as it comes to like, and Murray's like, and here we are watching it again, and you couldn't really watch it again because what they were tracking was not the track at all. It was just kind of, I mean, look, technology's obviously come a long way, but they can keep it.
Either that or Dad was drunk and he brought his 10-year-old to the job to work day and he stuffed it up.
Yeah, that's how that worked too.
Another thing that's aged, Paul, is 8-second pit stops.
Yeah.
That is insane, eh? Anything over 4 seconds, we're like, whoa, that was bad.
Unless you're 7 Ferrari.
It's like watching IndyCar.
It's crazy how long they took,
Yeah.
hey? It's like, wow.
Individual wheel nuts in there.
It's nuts.
Why?
Has not aged well. Pit stops now are about as good as they get in Formula 1.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's still the best sport for pit stops easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. Some fun little facts. I've got one. Do you guys have any?
No.
No.
Well prepared.
My
Love
fact
that.
was
We're very
Lewis
prepared.
Hamilton was 3 when this race.
That's good. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
James?
Also made
Better
that
next
up.
time.
You can
Thank
fact
you.
check me, but I'd be bloody close.
Senna had qualified 13 out of 16 races on pole this year. That is incredible.
It's phenomenal.
That's incredible. And he's
he's doing
only
it.
had 6 wins for
Yeah.
the year.
Yeah.
Campy alluded to it earlier that he had a very rough year with mechanical things, some random black flag getting rubbed off kind of stuff. But
grim.
13 out of 16 pole positions is friggin' incredible. And you can see why he had so many in his career. Like, his one lap pace is incredible. It probably speaks to a little bit of his consistency and how bloody bull at a gate he was when he was racing someone and how many risks he took.
Against a certified star in Alan Prost too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause that guy can drive.
Yeah.
Big time.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, this is the time when we come to Peak of Their Powers Award. So this is when we talk about a team, a person, all those kind of things. And we go, is this the best they ever were or at the peak, the most peak of their powers? So let's use McLaren for the example. Was this the best McLaren ever was?
Yes.
So I think it was. I think they had two of the most elite drivers. They had clearly the best engine with that Honda. Their aero was far and away better than everyone else's. That car was just put together so much better than everyone else's.
Oh.
And they go downhill when they lost Prost?
No.
See,
Because they retained Senna.
yeah, and he
And
was
Senna
the
won
one.
it the next year.
Yeah.
So,
This is kind of the peak era of McLaren.
I mean,
Until
I
this
think
year.
I think it is because it's still the era that everyone talks about. Everyone still
Yeah.
talks about Senna as being the greatest and the best and the quickest, the purest racer and purest driver that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
McLaren have had other dominant periods,
Sure.
like in
But
their
this was
black
their
and
peak,
white
wasn't it?
West
Yeah.
sponsorship
Mega
days. But the
Hakkinen.
problem with that, and David Coulthard as well,
Yeah.
the problem with that era is that their mechanicals happen too often on track. The car was so fast and quicker than everyone else, but you never knew if it was going to make the finish line or not.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, it is the peak of their
I would
powers.
think so. What about Honda? Is this the peak of Honda in F1?
Well, it certainly wasn't when Fernando Alonso was with McLaren.
F2 engine?
GP2 engine.
GP3.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Honda has it all to play for this year.
Yeah.
And then they're not going to exist in the sport again. So maybe by
I think it is. Yeah.
That's
How
the
many
truth.
championships does Honda as an engine supplier?
You're going to put me on the
actually
spot and I don't know.
won? Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't know.
Not
either.
enough.
Can we just say yes?
Well, they keep on
Yes,
getting in
I
and
think
out,
it
and
is.
I can't pick it up. So anyway,
No, I think it is. And then lastly, Senna. Was this the peak Senna? Was this when he was at his absolute peak powers? We just said 13 out of 16 pole positions. He didn't win the championship in this year, though. Is that the thing? He should have,
He
though.
should have.
We all think he should
we've
have.
talked about the 6 wins that he had. We've talked about the 3 wins that
Yeah.
he lost, 2 of them due to mechanicals, 1 getting taken out.
Yeah.
You take this race into consideration. That's 10 wins with a possible another one in Australia coming after
16.
this race in Adelaide. I mean, that's 11 out of 16 qualified on pole with mechanicals because they happened all the time back
One of
then.
the better seasons you'd ever see.
Yeah,
Pretty mega.
yeah, mega.
Yeah. It's
Pretty mega.
this one or next season when he comes back with a fire in his belly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think this is the peak. Should we talk about the actual incident itself? Because in my incredibly fast overview, I don't think we probably got into the specific
Maybe
incident.
you can read that.
So this race was a race between two teammates, really.
Yeah.
And the basis of it is Prost got out to a really fast start, 6 seconds. That's the furthest he got out to. And then Senna put his head down and closed the gap, lost time because of cars holding him up.
Yep.
And in the pit stop was still able to pull up and potentially get a
on
pass
that fresh
on
rubber. He was incredible.
yeah.
After that pit stop, we just saw how good and how ballsy that guy is.
Yeah.
And like just the driving, the precision of it.
Oh, yeah.
In a manual car like that, you had to throw it around. You could see every time he's under brakes, the front's unsettled, the rear is stepping left to right, and still control it and set fastest laps times that we'd ever seen at this racetrack. Just incredible. So, but anyway, talk about the incident, Jim.
Yeah, so obviously after closing down that gap and Senna was really flying to catch Prost, the only real place in the Suzuka that you can pass is the chicane right at the very end in that last corner. Now, it is worth saying that after this incident, Senna did this exact same move again and it worked for him. So it wasn't like this was just a Hail Mary and, what a silly place to pass.
Yep.
But he set it up on the inside to go around the chicane against Prost. And Prost, before this race, had said to Ron Dennis...
Coming out of 130R, which is a 300-kilometre entry speed, dude.
Huge. Ridiculous. Huge. He said to Ron Dennis, I am not going to leave the door open anymore. Normally I would because teammates and trying to play everything, play for all that stuff, but not anymore. And certainly that is exactly what happened. Senna put it on the inside and Prost closed the door. He saw Senna was there as well. You can see him looking in his mirrors and he just came in on Senna, thus putting what he thought, Prost thought, both of them out of the race. So Prost suffered more damage than Senna. Senna's had front wing damage, but Senna was still running. So Prost unbuckles his seatbelts, buggers off, walks leisurely, does a leisurely stroll back to the pits and thinks it's in the bag. Whereas Senna gets the race stewards, the guys alongside the track to come along and push him. Basically, give him a push start. Now, it's important to note, and Campy, maybe you can talk about this, that push starts weren't legal except for in certain instances.
Yeah, and the instances, the way they classified it was if your car was in an unsafe position and the stewards or the marshals could push start you, then that was acceptable and that was fine.
Yeah.
The other thing the psyche was too, Prost didn't care if he took out Senna or not, because if he took out Senna, he'd won the world championship either way. So there's always this thought about whether it was deliberate or whether he was not being gentlemanlike.
So he thought, so he was out going, well, I've won the world championship. So there's conversation, right, Tommy? Murray Walk is like, Paul, his co-commentator, is like, well, he's going to get a penalty for a push start. And even I was like, dude, just maybe give a bit of interest into this, because Murray's like, oh, is this going to happen? Yeah. So whilst Prost is walking back to the pits, Senna's had to do a full lap of the entire racetrack to get back to the pit entry. And that's because he didn't go through the chicane where the pit entry is. He went through the outside part of the track. If you've watched this, you know what we're talking about.
Right?
Yeah, because he had to. And everyone said, well, he's going to get, a penalty for the push start. That's not what ended up happening. We'll come to that a little bit later. But anyway, enter Ron Dennis, Superman with a lollipop, runs out as Senna completes his lap. And this point, Nannini was around 46 seconds behind Senna. Senna pits, new nose cone. So it actually looked a lot easier to put a new nose cone on those cars than it would do something today, even with or without Ron Dennis pausing for effect. While he's in the pits, Nannini takes the lead. So Benetton, it'll be the best result he's ever had if he finishes in first. He's finished third a couple of times. Benetton's running a Cosworth V8, so it's not as quick as the V10 Honda power in the McLaren. But there's about a 4.5 second difference by the time Senna leaves the pits. And he has no other damage apart from the wing damage. So he's chasing down Nannini. Within 1 or 2 laps, this dude is all over it. Fast forward, it takes the checkered flag. And Nannini comes second. And it was an incredible comeback.
He made the pass on Nannini in the same place that he went for the pass on Prost.
Yep, and Nannini locked his front left the door open like a gentleman. Yep. It didn't turn in on him, and because he wants, and they even said it, Nannini wants second
over
Prost wanted Senna out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's the clincher. Anyway, so I just thought it would be good to
perfect.
look through that specific incident. So, but let's talk about what then happens after the race.
Yeah, so that happens, and then, as you alluded to, not just a penalty, but a disqualification. So this just opens a whole kettle.
What did he get disqualified for?
You tell us, Campy.
He didn't get disqualified because the marshals push started him. He got disqualified because he didn't make an attempt to do a 180 turn and take the proper chicane before you go onto the straight. Where his car was positioned and where the marshals had to push him forward to start it, there was no way that he could safely do a U-turn and take the chicane on the track. He just went the alternative route and went onto the straight. If you notice the Suga layout, I mean, the fans...
It's hardly a shortcut.
It's hardly a shortcut after you've just had a crash and stalled your car with your teammate and got push started. So it's not like he gained an advantage.
Yeah.
But he got disqualified for not taking the chicane.
Which now is just a penalty. If you miss a corner, you miss something, penalty.
Classic FIA, hey? Hasn't changed at all, stewards.
So we go in and there's legal battles. We've got Ron Dennis lodging full-scale legal battles into getting this overturned as we're going to the final race in Australia at that time.
Yeah.
Because it's all to play for. And it must be said that Prost had already signed with Ferrari and was on his way out. So he didn't give a crap. He was like, done with McLaren, whatever, screw you guys, I'm off.
McLaren had wrapped up the constructors and it was either between him or Prost that was winning the world championship.
Yeah, that's it. And this was all to, like, because if Senna didn't get this win, which he'd won technically at the checkered flag, he couldn't win in Australia even if he came first and Prost came last. It wouldn't have mattered. So it was very important. This dragged on and ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is teammates too. Like, you got to remember politically at the time, Senna was the driver's driver of the people. Everyone loved him because of the moves that he made on track, and he was known for taking those tight lines. He was like what we see modern day in some of the driving skill and passes these days.
Yeah.
He was like that back like that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So, but his personality rubbed the FIA and Formula One up the wrong way.
Yeah.
And they had a clear favouritism.
You saying
towards-
agenda?
Yeah.
What does agenda do?
They're corrupt. They set him up to fail.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame, but that's just ultimately what happened, right?
Yeah.
So can't change history.
No.
But what happened the next year, boys?
So
At Suzuka, same track.
Senna takes it.
No. Same thing happens. Senna qualifies on pole, and he's fuming that he has to start on the dirty side of the track. So he started on the dirty side of the track. He wanted the racing line to start on that side. Prost qualified second in the Ferrari. It was between those two for the World Championship. So anyway, Senna went and complained and said, I want to start on this side. This is crap because it was dirty and greasy. Sure enough, Alan Prost gets the start of his life again. And into turn one, Senna just said, the old fuck it, and just went straight into him, took him out, and the World Championship was his, and there was nothing the FIA could do about it.
That's incredible.
That's the biggest.
No, because like you think about it, because Prost, if we've got some photos of the incident as well. Prost clearly cut in and didn't leave space for Senna to make the move, right? Clearly, in my opinion. I mean, it was tight. You probably shouldn't put a car there, but, you know, at specific points in that pass, he had the car in a position where Prost should have been a gentleman and given him the room.
Yeah.
But he turned in on, deliberately crashed in, tried to take him out. So what happened 12 months later? Poetic justice, same thing. Fuck you, mate. Just took him out straight off. Not that I like that, not that I think that's the way to go about it, but he's like...
But in the relationship of those two guys, you can imagine how it was.
Totally. If you check out the slide.
We'll throw it up in the... You'll be able to see it.
You able to see it, but they hated each other. That is the serious thing. But who did you think was right in
So
that?
this is what we're going to end on, is like, who do we think was in the right here? I'm backing Senna because before I even liked F1, I loved Senna.
Yeah.
Just as a guy, I think... He was a gentleman on the track in those kind of respects. Off the track, he was a jerk. I think everyone loved that, but I think you could tell that it was because he just loved
It's Max
F1.
Verstappen. It's all.
He's
previous Max Verstappen.
He is the Gen 1 Max Verstappen. But you could see how much it meant to him. And to see a guy that wants to get going again and just, I don't care if I'm behind, don't care if I need to pit again, I'm going to win this race. Like, so determined. You just don't see that. We see drivers now just done.
Yeah.
Catcher.
Yeah, look, I think Prost did it on purpose, closed the door. He said all this lead up to it, and said, Prost and afterwards saying
to have said it first as well.
Yeah, Senna drove dangerously, and that's not okay, and blah blah blah. It's like you can't say that when a couple of laps later he does exactly the same move on Nannini, and Nannini is able to see him and push him through. We say that we said in the 2020 season. You see Kimi Räikkönen in a slightly slower car, if faster cars coming through. We'll battle them to slow them down, but when the time is right, we'll let them go through. So, look, incredible race, Suzuka. If you haven't yet watched it and you're watching this first, which is totally fine, we'll throw some links down below as to where you can see it. But an incredible look back into history.
It's great.
But
it's great. What a race.
You'd be stoked.
We're going to do more
I
of
love
this.
it. I love it. It's just the best. Like 31 years ago it happened. Like, I mean, that's how long the sport's been going for, and longer than that. It's just got such a history, and yes, it changes and adapts and changes with the times, but they were the real glory years for F1, really.
Yeah.
And the post-Lauda Hunt era as well. That was the next. Senna was the next person to really to grab the attention of the world and the attention of the whole world on one driver because of what he could do behind the steering wheel.
Love that, behind a steering wheel. Well, if you enjoyed this, we'll be doing plenty more this year. Please consider subscribing. You can find all the information from where we're doing all of our stuff in the description below. And check out our merch store. If you want to support the show and the podcast, buying some merch goes a long way, and we really love it. But for now, that's it. Boys, thank you very much. And we will see you next episode.